In this video, we're gonna go into the deep, dark details of proper body position. So one of the big missing key points of the sport is proper fundamentals. I don't think they get taught enough. I don't think there's enough emphasis when you get new bikes. I don't think that there's enough education. So here we are. We're gonna go over every piece of body position that we could possibly think of today to help you have a reference to come back to when you go practice at your local track. All right, so the first thing that we're gonna talk about in body position is gonna be seated upper body position. So where we're connected to the bike and what nuances make that work and not work. So the first thing that we're gonna talk about is where our hands are placed. I think this is something that's not talked about enough, and I see a lot of riders with the improper hand position, which leads to improper elbow position, which kind of messes it all up. So what you wanna think about when you're gripping onto the bars is instead of coming straight into the bars, you wanna kind of come in and imagine if you were almost turning a doorknob, right? So if your grip was more turning rather than kinking your wrist. The idea behind that is that you have a little more room to keep your elbows up and high, which is the next step in this, without going tight into your ribs. The second piece of that is having a finger or two fingers on the controls at all time. The reason for this is things happen really quickly, and it's nice to not have to go to them. That split second can make all the difference, whether that's running into someone that's fallen in front of you and or just having control of your clutch and front brake. So when I talk about kinked wrists, there's a couple things that are bad about that. One is if you take impact, which we know is inevitable riding a dirt bike, if your wrist is kinked, you take all of that pressure right into your wrist. Okay, so if you rotate it through, regrip the handlebars, you now straighten these bones out, straighten these joints out, and you're driving all that impact into your elbow, into your shoulder, which are much bigger, stronger joints. So we want to eliminate the risk of hitting hard and putting all that into our wrist. There's a lot of little bones in there that can break. Hey, have you seen our merch? It's pretty sweet. shopmxf.com, check it out. All right, so the next step in seated position is going to be actually where we're placed on the seat, where we're sitting on the seat. First, we're going to talk about side-to-side movement and how that matches what track surface that you're on. So if we have a rut and we have support, we know that if our body is center line down the middle of the bike, that our weight is pushing the middle of the tires into the ground, right? So if we stay center line, our weight is driving the wheels into the ground. So if we get the bike sideways and there's a rut to support it, we're just pushing into the rut. So it's okay to be in the middle of the bike when you have support. Now when you get to a flat surface, this is kind of hard to think about. Let's take it slow with me here. You want to move to the outside of the seat. So let's just say I'm turning this way. I'm going to set up in the corner by putting my butt on the outside edge of the seat and then leaning the bike a little down to the inside, putting pressure into my outside peg to put some weight into the bike, and then try to put as much pressure into the inside knobbies that I can. And when you drive your weight down the top of the bike, you're ideally weighting the underneath of the bike, which is your inside knobbies. So we want to make sure that we're rotating, elbow comes high, bike goes down below us, we're on the outside edge of the seat if the corner is slick and we're trying to find traction with no grooves. Okay, so front to back, where do we sit and how does that change? That really is dictating how tight the corner is, what type of dirt you're riding in, and how much weight we're really trying to transfer. If you don't really have the experience to be able to move around on cue, being on the front is the safest, okay? But if you have the experience and you feel pretty good about it and you want to try to weight the bike differently to create traction in different ways, think of it like this. If you have really good tacky dirt with some ruts in the corners, being on the front of the bike is gonna get the bike to turn a little easier, and also when you get on the gas, you're gonna be off the front, so the bike's gonna be pushing you forward. It's gonna be less weight in your arms, less pull in your arms. It's just gonna be, in general, easier. Think of it like this. When you weight the front end, the fork gets shorter, the bike gets shorter, it turns sharper. Okay, so that's, let's just say ruts or berms. And then we go into a sand type scenario where the dirt is softer. We need a little more traction to the rear tire to drive forward. We're not getting as much pull because we don't have the traction. You can scoot back a few inches and put a little more weight down the back end of the bike. You still do kind of want this upper body angle to where you're head's driving over the front, so when you stand, you can be in that good position, but you can move back on the seat to create a little more traction. All right, so we're gonna jump right into standing position. So the most important thing in standing position is having a good foundation, and that starts at your feet. So what we're gonna look for at our feet is that we're riding right in between the ball of our foot and our toes. So we kind of want to move our feet back to where we can have some flexion in our ankles. The reason the flexion in the ankles is very good is because it opens up the joints starting from the bottom. So if we lock up our joints here, it locks up our joints all the way through. It kind of makes it feel like you can't flex at your big pivot joint. So we want to be here so we have that extra inch or 2 inches of suspension. Right, so make sure that feet are pointed forward and they're moved back on the pegs away from the controls, right around the ball of your foot, maybe even a little closer to your toes. You'll have the most control there. And then moving up from there, what I like to think about is knees hovering almost, if you could draw a straight line, you'll hit the foot pegs, right? You'll hit the center of your foot. So you have a little bit of bend in your knee. Remember, the more bend you have, the more strain it is on your legs, and also the more weight that goes onto the front end, and then leverage goes up high with the head. So you go from here to being good in tack position. When you bend the knees, it just naturally goes here, and that kind of causes quite a few problems. So make sure the knees stay back, slight bend. And what I mean by slight bend is locked outs here. You got like a couple inches, if that, of bend in your knees. Second thing with the knees, they need to be tight to the bike. There are scenarios where tight to the bike isn't always the case. Say you get kicked sideways in the air and you need to let the bike dance a little bit, or you're a woods rider and you need to loosen up to get the bike to lean down low while you're standing, which both of those are more advanced. So if you're newer, always tight to the bike, build those muscles on the inside of your leg. That way you can feel what's going on down below you and control the bike the best. Moving on up from there, we're going into our hips. And I will say as a man, it's harder to be in this position because we don't have natural flexibility in our hamstrings like women do. And so what you gotta work on is, one, getting that. Two, is understanding how you can rotate your hips out. So most people that you see ride rotate their hips under, round their lower back, and that creates a hunch in the whole upper body. So when we do that, we turn off our front of our core, we put all the strain on our lower back, so we end up having lower back pain, and then we just don't have the strength to ride for very long standing because we're only using half of our muscles. So if you take those hips and you simply rotate them out, you create a flat back. Now we have muscles engaged here, muscles engaged here, and I can stand in this position and feel comfortable with no hands on the bars. If I rotate, I want to fall over and I can feel strain in my lower back. All right, so now that we've got the hinge in our hips, we've got the flat back, now all we have to do is try to create a 90-degree angle or close to in our arms, depending on how high your handlebars are or how tall you are. You want to be low, you want your spine to be in line with your sacrum, so you want to be as flat as you can with your spine for the big hits. You don't want anything to be kinked, you don't want to put yourself at risk, so we want our head looking out, neck long, elbows bent. The reason we want our elbows bent is because when we're standing, the bike's constantly going to and from us. If our arms are straight, when it goes away from us, it's yanking our upper body around. If our arms are too bent, it's obviously going to hit us in the chest. So we want to be just right in the middle, looking out here, and that's perfect body position. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it helped your riding at home. If you want more videos, we've got like 1 million of them over here. Check those out. Don't forget to check out our Instagram. It's at the MX Factory. Like, subscribe, and check out our Patreon account. Those are the 3 ways that you can support this channel if you feel it on your heart. We'll see you guys next time.